Down.
Video here.
Post time with Bobby G, Mary Rappolini, and Chris Crestik. Post time. I'm Felix Taverna. I'm looking forward to a great run for the Kentucky Derby. Post time. We'll get you there. We'll tell you every inch of track that we have to lay down in order to get to the winning post time. Johnny Velasquez, JR is having just a banner couple of weeks, winning everywhere that he's landing this time. We produce it from 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio. I'm Felix Taverna, host time. Can't wait.
Hello, everybody, and welcome from Southern California. I'm Felix Taverna, and what a pleasure it is to deliver a blockbuster on this Thursday in March. Welcome aboard. This is Post Time, recorded live from 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio. And I am excited and elated to talk about the road to the Kentucky Derby. We're down to 58 days until the first Saturday in May. And we're going to be able to talk about all the prep races that will come into form as we get to that date. Live over the 50 Way Studios. Okay, let's start this again. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, how was that? Was that all right?
No, yeah,
No,
you're good. You're on the air. Go ahead.
No, let's start it again. Let's go from the top, and here we go. I love the opening, Anthony. That's beautiful, brother. What work you did to put into that. That is fantastic, bro. Let's go it again. Let's go from the top, and here we go. I just went because my phone kept on saying it was muted. I didn't know if I was on or not, but we're on. Let's go.
Post time with Bobby G, Mary Rappolini, and Chris Crestik. Post time. I'm Felix Taverna. I'm looking forward to a great run for the Kentucky Derby. Post time. We'll get you there. We'll tell you every inch of track that we have to lay down in order to get to the winning post time. Johnny Velasquez, JR is having just a banner couple of weeks, winning everywhere that he's landing this time. We produce it from 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio. I'm Felix Taverna, post time. Can't wait.
We are here. We arrived on this Thursday and this day in March 2026, live from Southern California. I'm Felix Taverna. Thank you very much for joining us on our debut episode of Post Time. It's produced out of 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio, and I can't wait to deliver the road to the Kentucky Derby on Post Time. We're down to 58 days until the first Saturday in May. All the prep races are starting to unfold. We've had about a dozen of them, and now the major ones are looking us straight in the eye. We go to Los Angeles and we bring in Bobby G, my man in Los Angeles, who's going to really bring us to the first Saturday in May, but more so talk about the game we love, thoroughbred horse racing. Bobby G, welcome to Post Time.
Felix, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on the air with you. I've been listening to you for years, and what a treat it is to be here live with you at this momentous occasion in time, approaching the fastest 2 minutes in sports, maybe the greatest 2 minutes in sports. It's going to be an awful great pleasure to be able to share with you your thoughts and our thoughts on what the world's going to see on that first day in May.
I thank you very much for that. You know, you've been a dear friend, and we have some very, very close friends in common that we care about. And, you know, socially, we have talked over the last 2 decades about doing something down the road because you appreciated what I do, and I equally appreciate what you do. And one of the common lines, the denominators in all of this is the fact is that we both love horse racing. And, you're a fan, you're a bettor, you've probably owned before, but you've been around it. Your brother-in-law, Frank Mariani, who was the CFO of the Los Angeles Lakers under the great Dr. Jerry Buss, he loves horse racing. Our offices were right next door to the Forum, and Frank would go over to Hollywood Park during his lunch break, or he maybe even longer. But he loved the sport. Dr. Buss owned horses, and you have a history of being around wise guys, as we would call them. But let me get us right up to speed here. 2026, it's March. We have 58 days until the Kentucky Derby. And now the prep races have been sprung. We saw two prep races that ordered. Let me set the stage for the fans real quickly. Every equine has a full has a birthday on January 1st, and it's either a filly or a colt. And so like last year's 2-year-olds became 3-year-olds this year in January. And so the Kentucky Derby is only restricted for 3-year-olds. Colts, geldings, and fillies. Colts, fillies, and geldings. Already. So now, in order to get to the Kentucky Derby, this coveted race, the most coveted race in the history over the years of 30 years on the radio, talking with jockeys, all they want to do is win the Kentucky Derby. Okay, it's the most coveted race of our lifetime. I think so. So here we are. We're 58 days away. Now we have these prep races, horses. Not horses, ladies and gentlemen. They're colts, fillies, or geldings. A horse becomes he becomes a horse at 5 years old, a mare at 5 years old. So these are colts, fillies, and geldings that qualify for the Kentucky Derby. So in order to get to this coveted date, the first Saturday in May, the Mint Juleps, and the Run for the Roses, you have to earn points. So they have constructed prep races that garner points for the connections and the equines and the jockeys to get to the gate. Now, as we talked about the two prep races, the Fountain of Youth down at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, and then we had the Rebel Stakes, the $1 million Grade 2 Rebel that was run at Oaklawn Park. Mary Rappolini is going to join us, talk about the excitement that happened down there on Sunday. Robert, I put you to the test. You watched the Fountain of Youth. You watched the Rebel Stakes, and you might have watched several more prep races. But let's talk about the Fountain of Youth. Commandment, tell us what you think.
I thought Commandment rode the kind of race that ultimately he wants to run. I thought he put himself in the right position in the race. I thought he did everything he was supposed to do. I don't believe ultimately it's early in the game and there's still a lot of time to go. I don't believe that he is the horse that will ultimately win the Kentucky Derby, but there is no doubt that he is going to be a factor. He automatically qualifies with. You were briefly giving us a background on the Kentucky Derby, and you could probably elaborate more on the point system. But by winning that race, there is no doubt he will be in a stall, one of the 20 stalls that will be available to the colts and fillies and geldings on that first day in May. Not projecting too far ahead of myself. I think he's a contender. I think he runs. I think he runs well. I'm not sure he gets to the finish line first.
Well, with that being said, and everything you did say, what really struck me the most is that we haven't seen it all. We're just early in the game. And so, you're going to see second chances given by these colts, fillies, or geldings in other prep races is coming up. We have 58 days. We have about a dozen more prep races, like the Wood Memorial, the Arkansas Derby, the Bluegrass, the Santa Anita Derby, the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. And I'm sure there's plenty of time. So we're early in the game. And you look at the connections. Tell me, and I know we talked about this. Tell me about the connections of this colt named Commandment. Who trained, who rode him, and perhaps the ownership group.
Give me 1 second. Commandment is I could find it, I'd be a better man than I am right now. Okay.
That's okay. We'll move on because that was a impressive. I think it was I think it was a Brad Cox who won. I'm almost
Yes,
sure now.
Commandment is trained by Brad Cox. And
Okay.
I was just looking at, because I was looking at Chief Wallaby by Bill Mott, but no, you're right. Commandment is trained by Brad Cox.
So you've really you helped me out here because I was thinking about the second and third place finishers in that race, and I read a report where that Mott was looking for a 7 furlong allowance race for Commandment, but couldn't find one at Gulfstream. So he rushed him into this race. And remember, I said about second chances, and these horses will have second chances to go ahead and qualify for the Kentucky Derby. I would say that those under ones, those ones that didn't get to the winner's circle, like Chief Wallaboo, and who else exited from the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream, that was probably up there as a favorite.
I don't have that in front of me, Felix.
But that's okay if you don't have that. Let me switch to Arkansas. We have the Rebel, and that's the second springboard. That's the second springboard in the Arkansas Trail. You got to follow trails sometimes. The connections, the trainers follow a trail, and
Hey, Felix, could I say something? Interject something at this moment?
You go right ahead.
Okay, I've looked at a handful of this past weekend were those two races. But I would really be remiss. Another element of the Kentucky Derby that you can probably elaborate on is called the future bets. You as people who watch the races and choose to gamble on them, you can bet on the Kentucky Derby the minute these horses are eligible to start running in these prep races. And I happened to be watching a race just recently with the gentleman you mentioned, my brother-in-law, Frank Mariani. And the one race that has stuck out in my mind, because I have, in my mind, the idea is if you're going to start betting the Kentucky Derby, don't wait for the opportunity to bet them when the odds on these horses start to change based on their most recent races. I cannot have this broadcast with you without telling you that I've been really impressed with one horse that didn't race this past weekend, but raced in the Remsen Stakes, and that horse is Paladin. I can honestly tell you that I would be inclined to make a future bet on Paladin right now to win the Kentucky Derby, even though there's going to be a handful of races ahead of us. I like the idea of trying to see what's going to happen before it happens. That's that's the biggest element of horse racing that appeals to me the most, is to try to look at something and decide what's going to happen before it happens. I just wanted to interject that.
Well, you threw me the lob pass, or you threw the 40-yard touchdown on fourth down because you interrupted you interrupted my direction of going to Oaklawn Park and talk about the Rebel, and that is a good point. That is a good point of the future book. But the future book, I always thought there's two things about the future book: that the horse has to get to the Kentucky Derby. If he doesn't get to the Kentucky Derby, you lose your money. And so, like, it's early on, as you said, but I think there was a movie that was written by a good friend of a friend of mine, it might have been a documentary on what we talked about, one of the fillies winning the Kentucky Derby, Winning Colors, which the future book on. My friend keeps on telling me about this book that I got to read, and I think they they just went and made some sort of production or movie about it. But the story of Winning Colors, when they all knew what they had. D. Wayne Lucas, the late D. Wayne Lucas, knew what they had in Winning Colors. So the barn went to Mexico and Tijuana and bet the future book that Winning Colors was going to win the Kentucky Derby. In that year, 1988, I remember before the Santa Anita Derby, Winning Colors was 40-1 to win the Kentucky Derby. And right after that race, she became the third choice at 7-2. So and another thing I wanted to bring out in regard to that comment was that there are betting pools. So right now, a pool will close maybe on Sunday, and another pool will come up, and like you'll get a roster of horses with odds that you can bet on in the future book in the Kentucky Derby. And if it wins, it's going to pay, whatever you get in on, not the day of the race. Have you ever made a future bet in the Kentucky Derby?
Felix, first of all, I can honestly say I hate to think about how many times I've gone around the sun. I've made a lot of trips around the sun. I was at Santa Anita Park. I watched Winning Colors win the Santa Anita Derby. And may my mother, may her soul rest in peace. She was not a big fan of me liking to gamble. But unfortunately, that's what I chose to do at a very early age in life. And I can honestly tell you, I actually said to her, Mom, I know who's going to win the Kentucky Derby. Very seldom does a female horse, a filly, ever have a chance. And I actually asked her to bet on Winning Colors in the Kentucky Derby many years ago. I don't want to start crying on the air, but to answer your question more directly, yes, that's why I brought it up. If you want to really gamble, the future book is where you can really gamble because you're going to get some serious odds. Like you said, you got to walk softly because you may not get a chance to even walk into the gate and you lose your money before the race even starts. But you know what? No.
Now you're right. Hey, Robert, you're right. You're right. If you're going to make a bet, and you don't the lay of the land, that if the horse has to get into the one of the 20 to get any money, first of all, that's what you got to do. You got to get to the race, okay, in order to win your bet. But if your colt or filly or gelding gets to the Kentucky Derby, you have a chance to win that race at the odds that you got in the pools. And the pools close because as we get closer, uh, you talk about the colt that you were really high on, Renegade, and is that the name of the colt?
Paladin.
Ladies and
Paladin.
gentlemen.
Okay, I thought of Renegade.
Yeah,
Maybe
man.
there is a Colt. Maybe we're on to something. But you're right. And in another case, there's only 3 fillies who ever won the Kentucky Derby at that time. Regret did it in 1920, and then Genuine Risk did it in 1980, and then 1988 was the year that Winning Colors, Gary Stevens, the late D. Wayne Lucas, and she's just a masterful 3-year-old filly that just ran her heart out. I think we got Mary Rappolini. And we're rolling along here. We got Mary Rappolini that's going to be joining us. And Mary, I know you've been online with us. We appreciate the wait, but welcome to the program. It's so nice to talk to you.
Hi, Felix. Hi, Bobby G. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I want to just, for your listeners, mention a couple things because I've been paying attention to what you've been talking about. It looks like the next Kentucky Derby future wager betting opportunity is next weekend, March 13th through the 15th. So you'll have an opportunity to watch these weekend preps. And anyways, that's the next official future wager that you can get in on if you guys are interested. And
Thank
then
you
I wanted to
thank
just
you
back
very
up
much.
one more thing. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's an additional pool the first weekend in April. So.
Well, Mary, I got to
Felix,
tell you, you go right ahead.
Oh, Felix, yes, I wanted to mention one more thing too. you guys were running down the points, and Bobby G had mentioned like commandment's already in the gate. He secured himself a spot in the gate, and the points as they increase, yes, that becomes more likely as the bigger races, the more points. And I just wanted your listeners to know there was a story a while back that said it's about 35 plus points to kind of secure a spot in the gate on average, just to give people a feel if they follow the point standings and are looking at playing the future wager a little bit.
That's what I said last episode. We were called horsepower then. We switched it to post time because we wanted to really depict what our name is, and that post time is for our listeners were on radio, or our viewers are online, and so we got listeners and viewers that are listening to post time right now. But what I wanted to get back to was the fact that this is a real exciting time for me. I'm really jazzed about what we can do. We did horsepower 2 episodes, and then, as I mentioned, this is going to be called post time because we wanted to lay people to know that post time is when the horses are at the gate and ready to run, and that's what we're all about. But Mary, you and I have been friends for a long time. You've been on my radio show over the last 30 years that I produced it on many stations here in San Diego and Southern California. And I've always really enjoyed having you on. I want to ask you, you wrote a column in regard to the Rebel Stakes that ran on Sunday. I thought it was one of the best columns I've ever read in the daily racing form. The race was even more exciting because you had a number of colts in that race that all had a shot. How did you see it?
Oh, well, Felix, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. And I have always enjoyed talking with you because you have such an interest in the market I cover. And I love that. And your excitement for the Derby is, I just love seeing that from people. It was an excellent race. We had a very interesting horse, Class President. I didn't know what to expect from him. He'd had 2 starts. He shipped over from Florida. He'd never been 2 turns. So the race he ran was huge to conquer the 2 turns in $1 million race, the first time he's ever run that far. Now, the horse Silent Tactic has been down in here at Oaklawn, who ran second. He just got nosed out. He was second. He has been a real steady member of the local division. He was second in the Smarty Jones. That's the first points race in January at Oaklawn. Then he came back and he won the Southwest in February. That's the second points race. And then he came and really was just, he's in nearly a dead heat for the win, but he certainly was nosed out in the Rebel, and he'll go back in the Arkansas Derby. And what I think is going to be an important part of the puzzle for that horse is the 1.125 miles. He'll get more distance. They went 1.16 miles. He'll go 1.125 miles. He's a horse that's bred to like that. And I think if you talk to people, trainers, 1.125 miles is considered a separating distance. And that's what we're building to. All these preps, they're adding distance. So the next round of these preps move to 1.125 miles. And that is where you really do see a horse's propensity to handle more ground, because they'll have to get 1.25 miles in the Kentucky Derby. So, Felix, that's, I don't know how you saw the race, but that's how I did.
Well, you were my eyes, and I did see the race. And I just want to let the guys know back in the studio that I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Is there an open mic, or I hear voices on that? It just might be a reverb on my part, but I want to be able to get you back, sit in a chair, Robert, and relax yourself, okay? And look right into our cameras. Mary Rappolini, the Daily Racing Form correspondent from Oaklawn Park, in with us on post time. Mary, I just was sharing with Robert, and you might have heard me say that, the road to the Kentucky Derby, there's always been a trail. And one of the hot trails was the trail through Oaklawn Park, where Bob Baffert with American Pharoah, he went the Rebel, and then he went to the Arkansas, won the Arkansas Derby there, and then shipped him right into Churchill Downs, and he became the first Triple Crown winner in 38 years. So that spot down in Oaklawn Park, Mary, the track itself uh, is on the way to Kentucky Derby. I want to get back to the Rebel. You had a number of runners in there. Tell us about Litmus Test as well as the other horse or the other colt I talked to you. What kind of trips did they get, and who do you think will emerge from the Rebel to move the step forward? Can you hear me, Mary? All right. We've somehow lost contact with Mary, but Robert, you're right on a number of fronts, Bobby G. That's your
We got
show
Mary
name, but
back.
I'll always affectionately known you as
And we have
Robert,
John.
my friend. Robert, I want to ask you this: the Rebel Stakes. The Rebel Stakes was a real good race, and we got to go look and see the ones that didn't fire perhaps in the Rebel, because Johnny Velasquez had a great trip in that Rebel Stakes. We got to take a second look to the Rebel, because I say you got to follow that Oaklawn Park Trail, Robert.
Felix, there is no doubt that Johnny Velasquez, arguably one of the great riders that's ever one of the great riders that's ever ridden a racehorse. I thought he personally did as much to help that horse win the race. I know the horse is doing.
Hey, Robert. Hey, Robert, let me interrupt you. We do got John Velasquez on with us, I do believe, from wherever he's been. He's been tail spinning across the country. He might be in New York one day, California the next. He might be at Gulfstream Park, Dubai. His services are required. And at 54 years old, he's riding like the champion he is. Johnny V, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I
Can
can
you hear
hear
me?
you. Can you
Oh,
hear
very good.
us?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Hey, Felix, could I just interrupt one quick second to say something to Johnny V? Johnny, I happen to be very fortunate enough to have been friendly with Tony Matos for all these years. And I just got done saying what a wonderful rider you've been for all these years. I've had a lot of conversations with Tony Matos, and I still remember him once telling me, just for your knowledge, that you're his favorite rider of all time.
Wow, that says a lot. Angel's gonna be jealous.
Well,
Well,
Tony, Tony handled
he's handled everybody,
Angel.
but he's handled everybody, but Johnny V's his favorite.
Yeah, but he didn't want me.
Well, life's a bitch, Johnny.
That's how
It is.
good Tony Matos is. He's never been the agent for Johnny Velasquez, but let me tell you this: Tony's Puerto Rican, and so is Johnny V. He's Puerto Rican, and both of them are great to the game. They work their tails off becoming a Hall of Fame agent. Remember, Johnny V has been riding on the East Coast for 30, 40 plus years, and I'm happy to say he's joining us. First and foremost, Johnny, thank you very much for giving up your Thursday and being here. You had a great weekend. You've had a great couple of weeks. You're riding at the top of your game. You're 54 years old, and I think you're riding as good as you've ever been. I want to quickly jump to the Rebel Stakes and get your thoughts on a colt by Todd Pletcher, classic president, that you got home. Tell us how it all came together and how you saw the race.
Yeah, I think the race came out the way I thought it was going to be. Actually, I thought I was going to be laying third between the horse of Bayern Hernandez, which is Kenny McVitie horse, and the horse from Baffert inside with Claudian Pratt, So I thought, my horse broke really well, obviously coming from 7/8. And Flavian's horse was steps slower from there, and he asked him out of there. And then my horse kind of engaged a little bit. So I kind of let him do his thing, go to the first turn and hold my position. And after that, we got to the back stretch. And I, continue let him do his own thing. Loose reined. And I had back in my head that I got to be careful. I can't use him too much too early because he's very young and he's only the further he went was for miles. So by the time we got to the three pull, the horse for Kinematic Peak and the outside was putting a little pressure, and I kind of had to move a little bit, but I didn't squeeze him very much. I just want to hold my position. It came to the quarter pole. I mean, I went a little by little. I didn't use him all of it, obviously. When the other horse got to me on the outside, at least had something to fight back, and I was very proud of him because when I got after him and I went left-handed on him, he responded right away. So very very nicely done.
I know that you reunited with a guy that, well, you got to give him a lot of credit. Todd Pletcher and Johnny Velasquez was like peanut butter and jelly. You were the first call for many years. Your business has expanded. You came out west here. You were first call for Bob Baffert. I think it depicts on the way you're riding and what you bring to the game and to the equine itself of knowing that experience. I would even hate to ask you this question, but is Classic President going to be your Derby, Colt?
Well, that's too soon to say that. Though. Obviously we have a couple more races to go, and obviously he has to stay healthy all the way to the Derby. So I don't know if it's going to need another race between the Derby and now. So we got to see how they come out of the races, and hopefully they stay healthy to the Derby, though.
Man, you sound great, and I'm so happy that you're here. I want to share that over the 30 years I did radio, I interviewed thousands of jockeys and trainers and racing aficionados, and I never had the opportunity, for some unknown reason, of ever having John Velasquez on my radio show. And it's 2017, and we're at the little deli that sells the racing form, and I go in to get a drink, and Johnny goes in to perhaps buy the racing form, and I said, John Velasquez, I said, I'm Felix Taverna. I do this radio, and I've never had the opportunity of having you on, Johnny V. Would you please come on my radio show? And he said, oh, yes, no problem. And so, like, I had this little picture, like a calling card. It was from my idol, Roberto Clemente. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Johnny Velasquez and Roberto Clemente grew up in the same town in Puerto Rico. And I love Roberto Clemente, just like everybody who ever watched this gentleman play baseball. And I had this. I said, I want to give this to you. This is a big weekend for you, Breeders' Cup. You got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You're going to have great. I said, why don't you take this card, put it in the jockey's room, near your station, and maybe Roberto will ride. Well, Johnny had a tremendous Breeders' Cup. I want to transfer from that to somebody who's also very, 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 very special to me, and that's Richie Allen. And Richie Allen grew up in Wampum, Pennsylvania, just 7 miles from my home, or from my hometown. And he was the first biggest star that us kids playing baseball in the sandlot admired. And then I understood that Richie Allen was your first agent. And so he represented you. Tell us what kind of guy Richie Allen was and how you guys put all that together.
Yeah, without Richie, I would never have been here and the main line, if you will. I was in Puerto Rico, so we are United States citizens. But I wouldn't be in the mainland because I sent a tape with Angel to his house. I mean, he was in Puerto Rico. He got one of my tapes, a few races that I won in Puerto Rico, and Richie Allen was with him at his house, and they were watching the tapes, and Richie said to Angel, saying, "Man, this kid has some talent." And Angel said to him, "Man, he wants to come over here, but you know, he only has won 5 races, and he doesn't speak the language. I mean, it's really hard to break in." And Richie says, "Like, you got to bring this kid. I'll be his agent." And the next day, he called my agent to send me, to New York. Richie saw something that I guess Angel had not seen. Obviously Angel being the best rider in the world, and Richie thought that I, I remind him Angel when he was a bug, because Angel and him been friends for many years in the early '60s, I think, or mid '60s. So they knew each other very well. And he told Angel, "You got to bring this kid. This kid has a great talent," and that's how he became my first agent. Yeah.
That's what he told me. And they were watching. They were a video cassettes, and they said Richie was over at Angel's apartment or house, and Richie knew Angel from. See, Richie's brother Hank Allen was a trainer, and Richie loved thoroughbred horse racing from his early start of growing up in Wampum, Pennsylvania. And then he became a baseball player and a phenom. And during the times when he was at Philadelphia, he would miss second games of doubleheaders because he was at the racetrack. And he just loved horse racing at best. So now you two guys meet, you come over. Do you speak English at that time, or does Richie take you? And what was it first like of Richie Allen being Johnny Velasquez's agent?
My God, I didn't speak any English, but Richie was the sweetest man I ever met. Though, very kind, very soft-spoken, very caring. He definitely took me under his wing like I was his own son. Sort of was Angel. Obviously, came in to live with Angel. But Richie, it was a angel. To me, he was a really angel. He was a very special person, and very caring, like I said. And even the little English that I spoke, like, because I only knew words, I couldn't really speak the language. We got along great, and I kind of quickly pick up a little bit speaking, English for the time that I was with him. And that's how we we understood one another, a little bit Spanish and a little bit English, and it was a great experience to be part of him, and going around Belmont Park in the morning, trying to see people and trying to make business, and he was a very very big instrumental in my career. Yeah.
He loved you, and this is a tremendous story. Before I toss it up to Los Angeles with Bobby G, I want to ask Johnny V. We all got Bobby G, Johnny V, whatever it takes. You're here. I want to go back, and I wanted to always ask you this question. As I mentioned, you and Roberto Clemente were from the same hometown in Puerto Rico. You're only 54, and I am 73. But I got to tell you that he was, to me, like the greatest thing since sliced bread. Do you remember anything about Roberto Clemente? I know there's a park in San Juan, but the hometown, have you ever thought about two great athletes? One, Roberto Clemente, and the other, John Velasquez, that only had 5 wins and came to America, and you're the all-time leading money earner at 54 years old in thoroughbred horse racing. And I don't even think you reached your peak yet, young man. But tell us about the connection of where you were born in our great island of Puerto Rico, which I adore.
Well, he died. He died when I was 8 years old, so I don't know very much of him. Like, I never saw him play or anything like that. But I know the story about him. Though, I got the Roberto Clemente award, and I was in third grade at the time, so I must have been 7 years old, I believe, so 6 years old. So I had to learn the whole story about him, though, and what he did, and how he died, and the things that he did for everybody, though. Um, so from that up, if we're breaking up for whatever reason.
Yep. Uh,
Um,
just
can you still hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay.
There's a little.
Yeah. So low noise in there in the middle.
Yep. It
Um,
happens.
Yes. So from
Let,
then
let me
on, I
try
know I.
this. Let me
Yeah, go ahead.
try this. Let me try this. Let me
Yeah.
send it up to Robert, Bobby G in Los Angeles, and for Johnny Velasquez and see if we still have this feedback.
Okay.
Johnny and Felix, I'm sitting here smiling and laughing to myself because what I just listened to, I can't even begin to tell you how entertaining that's been to me. For all these years, I never really understood how Tony Matos and Richie Allen were such close friends, and now I know. It's a small world, and just so you know, Johnny, I'm a big sports fan. I've been a big sports fan my whole life. I'm from Pennsylvania. And let me tell you something, your first agent, let me tell you something. There wasn't a better baseball player that ever lived. Nobody could hit a baseball like Richie Allen. And guess what? The gentleman who you are from the same hometown as, that you're talking about two of the greatest baseball players that have ever lived. And it's like a small world to think that this, I'm listening to this story. I happen to be living in New York City, and I happen to be living in New York City on New Year's Day. It's a whole long story. I don't want to bore our audience with the details, but I still remember waking up New Year's Day and finding out that Roberto Clemente had died in such an amazing fashion. I think he was trying to take food back to, there was something that happened in Puerto Rico, and I think he died in his efforts to sacrifice whatever he needed to sacrifice to help the people in Puerto Rico. So what a small world, what an amazing story. And like I said, for all these years, I never understood how Tony was so friendly with Richie Allen. I remember sitting in a bar outside of Santa Anita with Richie Allen and Tony Matos. And thank you and Felix for shedding some light on the story. It's a
Let me
small
tell you
world,
this,
Johnny.
Robert. Let me
Yep.
say this. Let me say this that New Year's Day, when I was awakened by my younger brothers crying. Roberto Clemente, there was an earthquake in Nicaragua.
Yes.
And Roberto Clemente in 1972 on New Year's Eve decided that he needed to take a plane to Nicaragua to aid the earthquake victims. It was a major earthquake in Nicaragua. It was a bad rainy night. I interviewed his son, Roberto Clemente Jr., years ago, and he told me exactly what happened. But where it all starts is that, yeah, Tony Matos and Vince DeGregory, the great agent who handled Angel Cordero for many, many years, handled Lafitte Pincay Jr., and Tony and Vince, as I always tell you, Robert, Bobby G, that we've got to get both of them on because they've been great friends and they're Hall of Fame agents. But I want to get back to Johnny V. Johnny V, you were the president of the jockey
Jackie Still.
organization.
Yes.
How many years? How many years did you head that jockey committee?
I think it was 20, 21 years, the chairman of the Jockeys Guild. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. There's some people that really have no idea how anything works in horse racing. What about the rule that you can only use the whip 3 times during the stretch of a horse race, and they prevent you from protecting yourself? Anybody with a half a brain knows that the crop also protects that jockey from alerting the horse not to go over or bolt over the rail or bolt out. How is that coming along? And I know you fought for that in front of a lot of administrations who demanded that this be a rule. And it's the stupidest rule I've ever seen in horse racing. How have we come along since that point?
Well, it is 6 times though. 6 times done. Total. If you take your hands out of the neck, so 6 times total to to strike the horse. I mean, that was a long fight. When Heisa came in and that rule was trying to implement. We tried to go to the rule in Kentucky that we had worked really hard to implement, and HISA and together with Jockey Club and the California Commission and the Jersey Commission did not want any whips at all. So we end up having a compromise to go to the six strikes. And that's what we end up at. Still to this day, we're still trying to change it, through the Kentucky rule that you can use your whip down as necessary from the 3/8 pull home, and then you have your six strikes down the lane. So because some horses actually needs a little more than other ones, and would help a lot if we can use it, get the horses momentum going, and like some horses are a little bit lazy, the other ones. So it'll help those horses they need a little more than the other ones. So if we could go back to the Kentucky rule, which is and the 3/8 pole, you could use it, with the whip down and touch it on the back as well, and then have your six strikes down the lane. It will be perfect, But that's still on the works.
John Velasquez is our guest. Thank you very much for the time. I got to ask you one or two more questions and we'll let you fly. And I appreciate you so much for being in here. I appreciate what we're doing here. We're recording 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio. I want to thank Anthony and the executive producer, Craig, Anthony Thompson, and Bobby G in Los Angeles, Mary Rappolini, John Velasquez, Johnny V on with us. At 54 years old, did you ever think, like when you were 30, that you would be riding at 54?
Not in my dreams. No, no. I mean, and especially whether by the time I was in my 30s, a lot of the guys who was in their 40s and mid 40s, and they always talk that 45 will be a year that if you're healthy enough to go out because the business goes away, the people don't use you as much. So that was the norm. In the mid 40s, maybe early 40s, if you were healthy to be there, you were lucky enough to be there. So that was the norm. The people thought, early 40s, 45 will the maximum. So no, I never thought that I would be 54 years old and I'm still doing it, So, but I mean, I've been one of those lucky ones, very blessed, that I never had weight problems and, the accidents that I've been through. I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to, come back and do it at a high level and strong, having a strong mentality and everything. So I've been very
And do
blessed
it
with
the
that.
right way. You do it the right
Exactly. Yeah.
way, bro. You've done it the right way. You've taken care of your body. You're taking care of your
Yes.
family. You're good to everybody around you. You really have a good focus. And I talked with Mike Smith. I've had him on the radio program at 58. Lafitte Pinkai Jr. at 79 is one of my best friends in all the world. And when I get with Lafitte, I ask him all these questions. And so, like the question I asked Lafitte being from Panama, I'll ask you from being from Puerto Rico. What is it about the group of riders, the jockeys from Puerto Rico, that are so good? You list them. You had the Puerto Rican races jockey day, which was incredible, that you had 15 jockeys that originated from their country in their homeland of Puerto Rico in a contest, a jockeys contest. What is it about? What is it about Puerto Rico jockeys right now?
Well, I mean, we have a great school, so you have a really good start of learning how to be a jockey, but also Puerto Rico love horses. So even on the street and the countryside, so a lot of people love horses in Puerto Rico. So it's one of the things that we grew up with, And then when you get to be on the racetrack, if you're lucky to be part of it, I was not part of it. I mean, I went to the jockey school straight from the streets, basically, because I didn't have any family on the racetrack. But we grew up like that. We watched races. I mean, and we're very passionate. And the school gives you a good step going forward. So I think they do a really good job preparing the kids. And ever since I came out in 1990, they have gotten better and better. And they're doing a great job with that. And the kids coming out, they come in with a good experience. And they're much prepared when they come to the states.
I'm getting a report that there was just an earthquake in Louisiana. And if that's the case, we have a racing venue down there at the fairgrounds. So we hope that everything is safe. And Johnny Velasquez is our guest. Johnny V. Robert, you know me, Robert. Bobby G. I'll never call you Bobby G. I like Robert, but a lot of your close friends call you Bobby G. I know you by Robert. Johnny V is 54, and when I tell you, Robert, I've seen every jockey ride and until they retired over the last 40 years. I believe in my mind he's riding better than ever, and he's winning wherever he's going. It's something about the experience of the man, Bobby G.
Well, no, we were before he came on, and not just because he's on, because it's if you can't tell the truth, there's no reason to say anything at all. So I always pride myself in being as honest as I can. We were talking about the race at Oaklawn, and everybody watches a race with their own eyes. Everyone sees things with their own eyes. Everybody comes from their own perspective. And as a rider, nobody can know what's going on better than him because he's feeling the horse. I've had a couple of close friends through the years that have been riders, and whenever I'm with someone who does that, I'm always curious because I love sports. I loved playing sports when I was a kid. Obviously, horse racing wasn't part of my life, but I'm always so I admire for athletes so much, and I know that when I was watching that race, the way I saw it is I don't know as much about the horses maybe as the next person, but I can watch and see and use my own mind to see what a rider is doing and what a rider is doing to help make a horse successful in any race. And not just because we're speaking to him, because it's an honor and a pleasure and a treat to be able to talk to him. I thought the ride that he gave in that race had as much to do with the horse winning as the horse himself. I watched where he put the horse, how he gauged the horse's, what the horse needed to do at the moment when the horse needed to do it. Because, a lot of times when the gate opens, a jockey may have something in mind as to what he thinks the race is going to look like. And then when that gate opens up, most human beings, me included, have no idea what it's like and what takes place. And then it's up to, like the old line from Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And Johnny V is one of these human beings he's gifted and talented enough that no matter what happens in that race, he's able to do everything he can to give his horse every chance to win. And to be honest with you, since I've been watching racing, I don't think anything has changed. I think he has more of that ability now because, you can't, we're all going to get older, but experience is an amazing teacher. And I think all the years that he's been riding and all the years he's been so successful, that experience is so invaluable that only he could put it into his own words.
Thank you.
No,
Appreciate that.
it's like mental telepathy. It's like mental telepathy when you really come into it right now. Because while you're talking, I'm writing experience, and there's no substitute for experience. And it's a craft. You learn. The equines have a different tempo. They have different moods. You have to have and look, this isn't the only colt he's getting on. He's getting on horses that are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars all over the world, and they're asking him for his services. So he has to do due diligence. He has to look in to see the past performance, what this horse is like. Have I worked him? And I want to tell you another thing about jockeys that I will go to my grave. They are the strongest pound per pound athlete that I've ever been around. What they have to do, they get up early in the morning, they have to work these horses, they have to take a little nap, they have to go out and ride 7 races. One day, a jockey's in Dubai, the next day he's in California, the next day after that he's in New York on 3 consecutive days, and I'm thinking, boy, the wear and tear that these guys go through, nobody talks about that travel time, but these jockeys, pound for pound, when I tell you what they made sacrifices. Johnny V said, I don't have a problem with weight. A lot of these jockeys do. Okay. And one thing that you'll always remember is that these jockeys really work 24/7. Because after riding 7 races a day, they're going home to have maybe a little dinner and having, 4 hours of sleep, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just doing the same thing and depriving themselves and depriving themselves of a lot of things. But I love jockeys. I love Lafitte 79. I just saw Lafitte 2 weeks ago, and I can't believe that he's 79 years old. Mike Smith at 58, Johnny V at 54. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that, that's what we're talking about. Johnny, I know you got to go. You're out with your family, wherever you are. What part of the East Coast are you in right now?
Well, I came from New York this morning, so I'm in Florida right now. Yeah,
Good. So will you
yeah.
be riding? Will you be riding at Gulfstream this week?
Going tomorrow and then Tampa on Saturday, and
You're going
then
to the
how long
Tampa.
race I'll be different. Yes, yes.
Who are you riding in the Tampa Derby?
To tell you the truth, I don't even know. I haven't
Okay.
even looked. I
Let me
haven't
let,
looked.
let me.
I was told that I was going, and I haven't even looked.
Yep, that's good. You just go ahead
Yeah,
and just go wherever your agent sends you. You just go because you've been lucky everywhere you've been. Okay, and
yeah, yeah.
you're on a good roll, and we want to keep that roll. I want to ask you one more final question. You and Bob Baffert have a great trainer jockey relationship. Could you possibly see yourself riding any of Baffert's colts in the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, well, that's hard to tell though. I'm been after Bob that he needs to put me something else now though. Before I get too busy riding all the horses. So hopefully I get something one of these prep races to ride for him and hopefully win it. So then I have more options, to look for the Derby.
Yep. You
But
just
before I leave, before I'm gonna leave, I gotta tell you guys that I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you. Um, before I leave, I have to tell you about Richie. I think Richie was one of the greatest baseball players, and we all know that. But I think if Richie was small enough, he would be a jockey. He loved racing, horse racing so much that he really would have loved to be a jockey, though. So he was that kind of person, though. He was very athletic and in all that stuff that he did as a baseball player. But my God, he knew everything about racing. He knew everything. He knew how to read the form. He knew how to read, the race, how the race was unfolding, all that stuff. I think Richie had a little bit of everything.
let me say that's a great story. That is truth, because Richie, I'll tell you, when I think about Richie Allen, and when I think about how much he loved horse racing, and there's so many storylines behind this it's escaping me for a second about Richie Allen. Here's what I wanted to say. Over the years, Richie and I became friends. Vince DeGregory called me from Santa Anita, and I just got off the air, and he goes, Felix, I have somebody that wants to talk to you. And then the guy gets the phone. He goes, hello. And I went, yeah, who's this? He goes, I'm the Wampum Walloper. I said, Richie Allen? And he goes, yeah. And he go, Dick Allen. I go, well, you'll never be Dick Allen to me. You'll always be Richie Allen, because when a kid, I was 7, 8, 10 years old, 64, everybody fought to be Richie Allen on the playgrounds because he was the first big major leaguer from our little hometown, was small town. And I'll tell you what, wanted to. I think I called you. I called you on this day when I was driving to Los Angeles, Johnny. I told you this story, but I want to tell this story real quickly. That Richie was online. Richie was online, and he was told, he was in Tampa, that he was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame to be ready to come to Nashville. Now, both times, Richie Allen was denied by one vote to get into the Hall of Fame. The committee elected him 2 years after he passed away, which was a biggest injustice. I don't even know if I ever go back to baseball after that. But I want to tell you something, and there's a guy named Frog who lived in Philadelphia that worked for the Philadelphia Phillies, the grounds crew, and Richie called Frog and said that the Major League Baseball just called, I think I got in. And he started crying. He started crying to Frog. And then they found out that it was a false alarm, and on 2 occasions. But his family, they lived in farmland, and I don't know what it was, but that's funny that you would say that Richie Allen would have been a jockey if he could make weight. It made my day, and so many great memories. And for you to have him as the first, you have a Hall of Fame agent. You know, Richie Allen's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he loved you, bro. He
Oh,
loved you,
yes.
and he loved Angel. Angel. I was wondering how tight they were. And then Vince DeGregory told me, oh, no, no. He says, Richie's tight with 3 guys. Richie's tight with Angel Cordero. Richie's tight with Tony Matos. And Richie's tight with me, Vince DeGregory. Because you know what? I love Richie Allen. Robert, we're going to see Johnny V this weekend. I want to thank you guys, Johnny V.
Thank you, guys.
I just want to briefly say, Johnny, I can't even begin to put into words what a treat, what an honor it is to have a chance to speak with you. And I can't begin to tell you how much success I wish for you from this day forward for the rest of your career. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Go finish your night. That's John Velasquez, Hall of Famer. I don't know if Mary Rappolini is still with us. And I know that we just went an hour on this post time. I want to thank the Breeders' Cup, Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. I want to thank Craig Anthony Thompson, the executive producer of Post Time. Anthony has been our producer, director, did a marvelous job. I want to thank Bobby G up in Los Angeles, Mary Rappolini, Oaklawn Park, DRF correspondent in from Arkansas. And last but not least, Johnny V, John Velasquez. I can't tell you, I did a lot of radio, but this one might have took the cake. It really was that good, and we'll be better next time. Robert, I will talk with you, Bobby G, and for everybody out there, 58 days until the Kentucky Derby. Adios.
Pros Time with Bobby G, Mary Rappolini, and Crestik. Post Time by Felix Taverna. I'm looking forward to a great run for the Kentucky Derby. Post Time. We'll get you there. We'll tell you every inch of track that we have to lay down in order to get to the winning Post Time. Johnny Velasquez, JR is having just a banner couple of weeks, winning everywhere that he's landing. Post Time. We produce it from 50 Way Studios in Toledo, Ohio. I'm Felix Taverna. Post Time. Can't wait.